Good evening to you all. Happy Puja.
Happy Saraswati Puja.
Thank you, same to you. So, my dear students, in our previous class, I have discussed the non-cooperation movement and the advent of Mahatma Gandhi into Indian politics. Today, I am going to discuss about another movement which was launched by Mahatma Gandhi, and that movement was known as in the history as civil disobedience movement. Particularly, the non-cooperation movement formed a landmark in the history of freedom struggle. Although this movement failed to bring any constitutional gains, yet it had its importance in many ways. It created an awakening in the masses which had previously been developed by fear and lethargy. The people grew fearless and active and thereby developed a self-reliant attitude. Thus, in spite of its failure, the non-cooperation movement achieved its political objectives. It had its impact on the freedom struggle movement of the Indians. For the first time, my dear students, for the first time, a movement had been successful in awakening mass consciousness, awakening the mass consciousness. Then it undermined the power and prestige of the British crown. However, the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi got legitimacy at all India level, and he emerged as the undisputed leader of the freedom struggle. Thereafter, again, another movement was launched by the father of nation, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. After the non-cooperation movement, Mahatma Gandhi became a popular figure. In the meanwhile, the hardcore nationalists like Bhagat Singh, Batukeshwara Datta and Rajguru were put in jail. In the Lahore session of the Indian National Congress, which was held in 1929, the demand of Purna Swaraj was declared by the All India National Congress. Gandhi was authorized to launch the civil disobedience movement against the British government. तो पिलामाने जो नॉन कोऑपरेशन मूवमेंट आमे पढ़िथिले असहयोग आंदोलन से परवर्ती समय असहयोग आंदोलन विड्रन परे आउ गोटे आंदोलन पुरुधा होइथिला एवं से आंदोलन आईन अमान्य आंदोलन भावरे इतिहास रे परिगणित करा जाए एवं एही आंदोलन केबे हेतला 1930 मसिया रे एही सिविल डिसोबीडियंस मूवमेंट आरंभ होइथिला एवं जनवरी 26 1930 मसिया तारीख को सारा देश रे स्वाधीनता दिवस रे पालन करा गला एवं महात्मा गांधी को परामर्श क्रमे आईन अमान्य आंदोलन आरंभ करिया पे स्थिर होइथिला that so after the non-cooperation movement, as we all know, Mahatma Gandhi became a popular figure, and in the Lahore session of the Indian National Congress in 1929, the demand of Purna Swaraj was declared by the Congress, and Gandhiji launched the CDM or Civil Disobedience Movement in the year 1930. Apart from this area, what are the background and what are the causes of the civil disobedience movement? So we will discuss now. The spirit of national movement received a temporary setback with the suspension of non-cooperation movement. After the suspension of non-cooperation movement, many Indian leaders were dissatisfied with Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi Mahatma Gandhi. M.N. Roy was the first Indian who was selected to the Communist International. Later on, Muzaffar Ahmad and S.P. Dange, they developed the communist ideals, and due to their idealism, they were punished by the Britishers and were put in jail. Later on, in 1924, the Hindustan Republican Sangh was also formed, and Chandrasekhar Azad remained it as Hindustan Socialist Republican Sangh in 1928. पिलाने बुझिपारछ तो?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, first of all, as you all know, that after the suspension of non-cooperation movement, ଯେତେବେଳେ ସସ୍ପେନସନ ହେଇଗଲା କାହା ଦ୍ୱାରା? ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀଙ୍କ ଦ୍ୱାରା। ସେ ଗୋଟେ ଫ୍ଲୋରେ ଚାଲିଥିଲା, କିନ୍ତୁ ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ସସ୍ପେନସନ କେମିତି କଲେ, କଣ ପାଇଁ କଲେ?
ଚୌରୀ ଚୋରା ଇନସିଡେଣ୍ଟ।
ଭେରି ଗୁଡ। ଚୌରୀ ଚୋରା ଇନସିଡେଣ୍ଟ ଯେବେ ହେଇଥିଲା, ସେଇଠୁ ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ, କାରଣ ତାଙ୍କର ପଲିସି ଥିଲା ଟ୍ରୁଥ ଆଣ୍ଡ ନନ୍ ଭାୟୋଲେନ୍ସ। ସେ ଅହିଂସା ମାର୍ଗରେ ତାଙ୍କର ସବୁ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟକୁ ଆଗକୁ ନେବାକୁ ଚାହୁଁଥିଲେ, କିନ୍ତୁ ଲୋକମାନେ ହିଂସା ବଳରେ, ଯାହାଦ୍ୱାରା ଏଇ ଚୌରୀ ଚୋରା ଇନସିଡେଣ୍ଟ ଘଟିଥିଲା ଏବଂ ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ତାକୁ ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ସସ୍ପେଣ୍ଡ କରିଥିଲେ। ତେଣୁ ଆଫ୍ଟର ଦ ସସ୍ପେନସନ ଅଫ ଦିସ୍ non cooperation movement, many Indian leaders were dissatisfied, and many other leaders came forward and established and formed different sanghas or organizations. After that, during this period, the leaders like Bhagat Singh, Batukeshwar Datta and Rajguru killed the police officers, and later on these police officers, the Britishers, mercilessly beaten Lala Lajpat Rai on 8th April 1929. And Bhagat Singh and Batukeshwar Datta dropped bombs in the Central Legislative Assembly and to oppose public safety bill. Even if ଲୋକମାନେ ଏଇ ନନ୍ କୋଅପରେସନ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ପରେ ପରେ ଏଇ ଲୋକମାନେ ଯୋଉମାନେ ରହିଲେ ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ସେମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ ବ୍ରିଟିଶର କଲୋନିଆଲ ପଲିସି ଯୋଉଗୁଡ଼ିକ ଥିଲା ତାକୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ଅପୋଜ କରିଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର ବିଲ୍ ଗୁଡିକ ଯୋଉ ତାଙ୍କର ବ୍ରିଟିଶ କନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନରେ ଡେଭଲପ ହଉଥିଲା ସେଗୁଡାକୁ ସେମାନେ ଏଗନେଷ୍ଟ କରିଥିଲେ। ଆଉ ଇଭିନ ବଟୁକେଶ୍ୱର ଦତ୍ତ ଭଗତ ସିଂ ବମ୍ ମଧ୍ୟ ପକେଇଥିଲେ। ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ they were put in jail, ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ଜେଲରେ ଭର୍ତ୍ତି କରାଯାଇଥିଲା। ଇନ୍ ବେଙ୍ଗଲ ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟ ସେନ, ତାଙ୍କ ନାଁ ହଉଛି ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟ ସେନ। ଇନ୍ ବେଙ୍ଗଲ ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟ ସେନ started the terrorist movement. The British tried to suppress terrorism ruthlessly, and thereafter different supervision was adopted by the Britishers against the Indians, particularly the Simon Commission. But before that, the discussion of Simon Commission or any proceedings of Simon Commission in Odisha, this salt satyagraha movement took a massive turn. Not only in India, it also spread in Odisha also, particularly in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Bengal, Madhya Pradesh, Madras and Bombay. The peasants refused to pay tax to the British government. In Nagaland, Queen Choudin Liu took the leadership of civil disobedience movement. ଭାରତରେ ନୁହଁ, ଭାରତ ବାହାରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଏବଂ ଭାରତ ଭିତରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ବହୁ ଲୋକମାନେ ଯୋଉମାନେ ଉତ୍ତରପ୍ରଦେଶ ହଉ, ବିହାର ହଉ, ବେଙ୍ଗଲ ହଉ, ମଧ୍ୟପ୍ରଦେଶ ହଉ, ମାଡ୍ରାସ ହଉ, ବମ୍ବେ ହଉ, ଇଭିନ ନାଗାଲାଣ୍ଡ ହଉ, ଏଇ ଲୋକମାନେ बहुत माने आंदोलन को अग्रगति कराइथिले एवं से माने रिफ्यूज करथिले जे कोनोसी प्रकार टैक्स देबेनी काहाकू ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट को तेणु एहीपरि भाବରେ विभिन्न एरिया रे रहिला माने रहितबा लोक माने मध्य आंदोलन करथिले इवन इफ अंडर द लीडरशिप ऑफ खान अब्दुल गफर खान the Muslims set up Khudai Khidmatgar and supported civil disobedience movement. The Muslims also supported the civil disobedience movement and but this after non-cooperation movement, the relation between Hindus and the Muslims was also seriously affected. Communal riots took place with the rise of communal feelings and India had to pass through a gloomy period before the nationalist leaders were prepared for another great movement in 1930. But this civil disobedience movement, which was launched by Mahatma Gandhi in 1930, it was supported by different organizations, different people from different areas. The Muslims came forward, the Hindu Mahasabha, Muslim League also supported civil disobedience movement. Apart from this, the causes, number one, Simon Commission, the visit of Simon Commission, particularly, as we all know, the British government appointed Simon Commission in 1927. 1927 ख्रीष्टाब्दरे साइमन कमिशन ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट को द्वारा भारत को पठा जाइतला टू सुपरवाइज द फंक्शनिंग ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1919 जो मोंटांको सेल्स फंड रिफॉर्म्स ऑफ 1919 ताको सुपरवाइज करिया को साइमन कमिशन को अपॉइंट करथला के ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट to come to India and supervise the functioning of the government of India Act 1919. पिलाने बुझी पारछो तो?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the commission was not accepted by the Indian people as it had no Indian representative in it. ये जो साइमन कमिशन आसला सबु जो ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट पठेतला सेठी कोनोसी भारतीय लोक माने से भितरे नथिले. All the 7 members of the commission with his chairman Sir John Simon were Englishmen. समस्त English लोक थिले केही भारतीय नथिले. Therefore it was named by the Indians as all white commission. Simon Commission was named by the Indians as all white commission and was opposed vehemently by the Indian people, by the Indians. It was a bright example of British government's racial arrogance. Everywhere there are severe protests against the commission with the slogan of Simon go back. Go back Simon. Simon tome polao. But in February, the Simon Commission reached Bombay on February 3, 1928 AD. The boycott of Simon Commission created a congenial atmosphere for restoration of bond between the communist and political parties. The Indian political parties appointed a committee to frame constitution for India. जो ब्रिटिशर्स माने साइमन कमिशन को ता पूर्वरु गोटे गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट हेतला 1919 ख्रीष्टाब्दरे जाको मोंटांको सेल्फ फ्रॉम फॉर रिफॉर्म कुआ जाए एवं से ता भितर बहुत प्रोविजन अछि जो प्रोविजन गुडी को भारतीय मानक पई बहुत असुविधार पकेथला परवर्ती समय रे टू सुपरवाइज द फंक्शनिंग से गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट रो केमिति तार फंक्शन कर ठीक से नाही कोटी भारत रे सेति ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट कहा को अपॉइंट करथला सर जॉन साइमन को अपॉइंट करथला टू विजिट इंडिया and to supervise the functioning of the government of India Act 1919 and all the 7 members आ भितरे जो साइमन कमिशन आसीथिले ता भितरे जो 7टी मेंबर थिले all were Englishmen, not a single person was Indian. So therefore it was named by the Indians as All White Commission, and it was vehemently opposed by the Indians, and the Indians were severe protested this commission with the slogan of Simon Go Back. Apart from this, again the Indian political parties, भारतीय राजनीतिक जो पार्टी रहिले ସେମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଗୋଟେ କମିଟି ଆପଏଣ୍ଟ କଲେ ଭାରତର ସମ୍ବିଧାନ ନିର୍ମାଣ କରିବା ପାଇଁ, ଏବଂ ଏଇ କମିଟିରେ ରହିଲେ ମୋତିଲାଲ ନେହେରୁ, ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ and other people, and they demand the dominion status, and the younger leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose were more radical in demanding complete independence or Purna Swaraj. ତେଣୁ ଏଇଠି କଣ ହେଲା ନା ଯୋଉ ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ଯୋଉ ଲଞ୍ଚ କଲେ ସିଭିଲ ଡିସୋବିଡିଏନ୍ସ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ, ତା ପୂର୍ବରୁ କହି ରଖିଥିଲି ନନ୍ କୋଅପରେସନ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ର ଯୋଉ ସସ୍ପେଣ୍ଡେଡ ହେଇଥିଲା ତା ଭିତରେ ଯୋଉ ଲୋକମାନେ ଡିସାଟିସ୍ଫାଇଡ ହେଇଥିଲେ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ ଏବଂ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ସଂଘ ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ କଲୋନିଆଲ ପୋଲିସକୁ ଚ୍ୟାଲେଞ୍ଜ କରିଥିଲେ। ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ଅନ୍ୟ ଲୋକମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆସିଥିଲେ, ଆଗେଇ ଆସିଥିଲେ। କେତେ ଜଣ ଯୋଉ ଯେମିତି ଭଗତ ସିଂ, ବଟୁକେଶ୍ୱର, ସେମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ ବମ୍ ପକେଇଥିଲେ କୋଉଠି, ସେଣ୍ଟ୍ରାଲ ଲେଜିସ୍ଲେଟିଭ ଆସେମ୍ବଲିରେ। ସେଇଗୁଡିକ ଯାହା ହେଇଛି ତା ପରେ ପରେ ଏଇ ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ସିଡିଏମ ଲଞ୍ଚ କରିଥିଲେ, ଏବଂ ତାର କାରଣ ଗୁଡିକ ଆମେ ପାଇବା। ପ୍ରକୃତରେ କହିବାକୁ ଗଲେ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ଅସହଯୋଗ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ପରେ ଅସହଯୋଗ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ କେବେ ହେଲା?
1920।
ଭେରି ଗୁଡ। ଅସହଯୋଗ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ଆଉ ସିଭିଲ ଡିସୋବିଡିଏନ୍ସ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ, ଆଇନ ଅମାନ୍ୟ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ଭିତରେ କେତେ ବର୍ଷର ତଫାତ?
10 ବର୍ଷ।
10 ବର୍ଷ। ସେଇ ଅସହଯୋଗ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ପରେ 1930 ମସିହା ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଦୀର୍ଘ 10 ବର୍ଷ ଧରି ଭାରତରେ କୌଣସି ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ହୋଇନଥିଲା। ଭାରତୀୟ ଜାତୀୟ କଂଗ୍ରେସ ଗାନ୍ଧୀଜୀଙ୍କ ଦ୍ୱାରା ଅନୁପ୍ରାଣିତ ହୋଇ ଏବଂ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ଗଠନ ମୂଳକ କାମରେ ଯୋଉ କାଷ୍ଟ ସିଷ୍ଟମ, ଜାତି ପ୍ରଥା ବିରୁଦ୍ଧରେ ଏବଂ ଚରକକୁ ଲୋକପ୍ରିୟ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଯୋଉ ତାଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ଚରକ, ପିଲାମାନେ ଶୁଭୁଛି ତ?
Yes sir।
ଚରକକୁ ଲୋକପ୍ରିୟ କରାଇବା ଏବଂ ହିନ୍ଦୁ ମୁସଲିମ ସମ୍ପ୍ରଦାୟ ଏକତ୍ରିତ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଏସବୁ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକ୍ରମରେ କଂଗ୍ରେସ କର୍ମୀମାନେ ନିଜକୁ ନିୟୋଜିତ କରିଥିଲେ। ଏବଂ ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ସିଡିଏମ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ହେଲା, ଯୋଉ ଦ୍ୱିତୀୟ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟାୟ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ, ଏଠି ପୁଣି ଥରେ ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ଏକ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଭୂମିକାରେ ଅବତୀର୍ଣ୍ଣ ହୋଇ ଭାରତୀୟ ମାନଙ୍କୁ ଅହିଂସା ଉପାୟରେ ଏକ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆହ୍ୱାନ କରିଥିଲେ। ଏବଂ ଏହି ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନକୁ ଆଇନ ଅମାନ୍ୟ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ କୁହାଯାଏ। ଏବଂ ଏଇଟା କୋଉ ଅଧିବେଶନ ଆଗତ ହେଇଥିଲା ପିଲାମାନେ? ଏଠି ଭାରତୀୟ ଜାତୀୟ କଂଗ୍ରେସ ଲାହୋର ଅଧିବେଶନରେ 1930, ଏବଂ ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ ଜାନୁଆରୀ 26, 1930 କୁ ସାରା ଦେଶରେ ସ୍ୱାଧୀନତା ଦିବସରେ ପାଳନ କରାଗଲା, ଏବଂ ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀଙ୍କ ପରାମର୍ଶ କ୍ରମେ ଏଇ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ସ୍ଥିର କରାଗଲା। ଏବଂ ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ସ୍ୱରାଜ, କମ୍ପ୍ଲିଟ ଇଣ୍ଡିପେଣ୍ଡେନ୍ସ, ସେମାନେ ତାଙ୍କର ମେନ୍ ମୋଟୋ ଥିଲା। କିନ୍ତୁ ତା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ପୃଷ୍ଠଭୂମି ବ୍ୟାକଗ୍ରାଉଣ୍ଡ, ପ୍ରଥମ ହେଲା ସାଇମନ କମିଶନ, ଆମେ ଯାହା ଡିସ୍କସନ କଲେ। ତାପରେ ଆସିଲା ନେହେରୁ କମିଟି ରିପୋର୍ଟ। ନେହେରୁ କମିଟି ରିପୋର୍ଟ ଆସିଲା, ଏ ଯୋଉ ଡିମାଣ୍ଡ କଲେ ଫର ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ସ୍ୱରାଜ। So the Indian National Congress met at Lahore in December 1929. Before the outbreak of CDM, the Indian National Congress met at Lahore in December 1929 under the presidency of Jawaharlal Nehru. ତେଣୁ ଜବାହରଲାଲ ନେହେରୁଙ୍କ ସଭାପତିତ୍ୱରେ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ଭାରତୀୟ ଜାତୀୟ କଂଗ୍ରେସ ଲାହୋରଠାରେ ଏକ ମିଟିଂ ରେ ଡିସ୍କସନ ହେଲା। ଏବଂ ଦିସ୍ ସେସନ ୱାଜ ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ ବିକଜ ଇଟ ୱାଜ ଇନ୍ ଦିସ୍ ସେସନ ଦ ଡିମାଣ୍ଡ ଅଫ ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ସ୍ୱରାଜ ଅର ଫୁଲ ଇଣ୍ଡିପେଣ୍ଡେନ୍ସ ୱାଜ ମେଡ ଫର ଦ ଫାର୍ଷ୍ଟ ଟାଇମ। ପ୍ରଥମ ଥର ପାଇଁ ଏଇ ସେସନରେ ସେମାନେ ଡିମାଣ୍ଡ କରିଥିଲେ ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ସ୍ୱରାଜ ଅର ଫୁଲ ଇଣ୍ଡିପେଣ୍ଡେନ୍ସ। On 31 December 1929, for the first time, the Indian tricolor was hoisted. 26 January 1930 was declared as the first Independence Day, and it was also decided in this session that the CDM would be launched under the direction of Mahatma Gandhi. So before the outbreak of CDM, there was two important development occurred, that was Simon Commission and demand for Purna Swaraj. But however, before launching the CDM or Civil Disobedience Movement by Mahatma Gandhi, he presented a consolidated 11-point administrative reform proposal to the British government. He wrote a letter. ତେଣୁ ଗାନ୍ଧୀଜୀ ଲଞ୍ଚ କରିବେ କୋଉଟା ଆଇନ ଅମାନ୍ୟ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନକୁ ଲଞ୍ଚ କରିବା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ସେ କେତୋଟି 11ଟି ଡିମାଣ୍ଡ ରଖିଥିଲେ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ଆଗରେ ଏବଂ he wrote a letter at that time during the outbreak of CDM or Civil Disobedience Movement. That time the Lord Irwin was the viceroy. So Mahatma Gandhi wrote a letter to the viceroy Lord Irwin and advised him to accept all the proposals. ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ ପିଲାମାନେ?
Yes, sir.
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ ପିଲାମାନେ ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ ତ?
Yes, sir.
ନା ଜୋରେ କହିଦଉଛି? ଠିକ ଅଛି ତ?
ठीक है
हाँ. So before launching the CDM, Gandhiji presented consolidated 11-point administrative reform proposal to the British government. He wrote a letter to the Viceroy Lord Irwin and advised him to accept all the proposals. He also warned Lord Irwin that if his proposals were rejected, he would be forced to launch CDM campaign, Civil Disobedience Campaign. Lord Irwin rejected Gandhiji's proposal, thus began the Civil Disobedience Movement. It was a movement to disobey laws made by the British government. यार ओडिया होची आईन अमान्य आंदोलन लॉन्च करिया पूर्वरु महात्मा पॉइंट प्रोग्राम गोटे लेखिकी लॉर्ड इरविन भाइसरय सेतले थिले से लॉर्ड इरविन पाखु पठेइथिले गोटे चिठी माध्यम रे एवं तांकु कहिथिले तांकर सब प्रपोजल को एक्सेप्ट करा जाऊ ऑल्सो वांट से तांकु कहिथिले मध्य जदि इफ प्रपोजल्स आर रिजेक्टेड जदि से प्रपोजल गुडी को रिजेक्ट करिवे केतडी प्रपोजल 11 प्रपोजल गुडी को रिजेक्ट करिवे ताहाले से आंदोलन को लॉन्च करेबे तेणु से जो 11टा डिमांड थिला महात्मा गांधी कर सेगुडी को होची नंबर 1 प्रोहिबिट इंटॉक्सिकेंट लाइक लिकर एंड टोबैको नंबर 1 नंबर 2 change the exchange ratio between the rupee and sterling reduce the rate of land revenue abolition of salt tax चारटा गला नंबर 1 आउथरे कहि रखुची नंबर 1 prohibit intoxicants like liquor and tobacco. Number 2, change the exchange ratio between the rupee and the sterling. Number 3, reduce the rate of land revenue. Number 4, abolition of salt tax. Number 5, reduce expenditure on civil administration. Number 6 बोधे पिला ने reduce the military expenditure. Number 7, impose custom duty on foreign cloth. Number 8, accept the postal reservation bill. Number 2, abolish the CID department. Number 9. Number 10, release all political prisoners. Number 11, issue license of arms to citizens for self-protection. These are the 11 demands which was made by Mahatma Gandhi, and he wrote a letter to Viceroy Lord Irwin and advised him to accept all the proposals. Then the program and the course of civil disobedience movement. the program of the civil disobedience movement remained almost the same as the non-cooperation movement, with a slight alternation. It changes asla, but the course was completely different. Mahatma Gandhi prepared an elaborate program of the CDM, and the narrow self-interest of the communal and regional character that switched during the non-cooperation movement vanished, and an all-sacrificing attitude was created and prevailed among the people, irrespective of men and women throughout the country. ତେଣୁ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ 11 ପଏଣ୍ଟ ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ଗୁଡିକ ମୁଁ କହିଲି, ସେଇ ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ଗୁଡିକ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଡିମାଣ୍ଡ ଗୁଡିକ ଆକ୍ସେପ୍ଟ କଲେ ନାହିଁ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ, ତେଣୁ ସିଏ ଆରମ୍ଭ କଲେ ଆଇନ ଅମାନ୍ୟ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ଏବଂ ତାର ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ଗୁଡିକ, ତାର ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ଗୁଡିକ ଯୋଉ ଆକ୍ଟିଭିଟି ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ଗୁଡିକ ଯୋଉ ହେଇଥିଲା, ସେ ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ଗୁଡିକ ମଧ୍ୟରୁ ସିଭିଲ ଡିସୋବିଡିଏନ୍ସ ର ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ଯାହା ନନ୍ କୋଅପରେସନ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ର ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ସେୟା ଥିଲା, କିନ୍ତୁ ଏଠି ସିଭିଲ ଡିସୋବିଡିଏନ୍ସ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ରେ କିଛି ଚେଞ୍ଜେସ ଆଣିଥିଲେ ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ, ଏବଂ ଯୋଉଗୁଡିକ ଏଠି ସବୁ ପ୍ରକାର ଲୋକମାନେ ଆସିକି ଜଏନ କରିଥିଲେ, ମେନ୍ ହଉ ଓମେନ୍ ହଉ ଥ୍ରୁ ଆଉଟ୍ ଦ country, not only India but also outside India and from Odisha also. Besides the boycott of foreign goods, British courts and English educational institutions, the civil disobedience movement was directed to disobey the unjust laws of the British government. अर्थात जेतरा नॉन कोऑपरेशन में थिला मूवमेंट रे to boycott the foreign goods, boycott the British courts, boycott the English educational institution. But apart from these three, the CDM or civil disobedience movement was directed to disobey the unjust laws of the British government. British government रो जो law गुड़िको आईन गुड़िको जो unjust माने बेकार आईन गुड़िको न मानिया पे हमारा CDM रो मुख्य आधार थिला. As such, the most important program of the movement included the non-payment of any tax to the government by the people and non-acceptance of any act which they considered as against their conscience. Gandhiji decided to break the SALT law fast. Side by side, he wanted the students to be up from the school and colleges and the public servants from their offices, picketing before the shops, selling liquor, opium, foreign goods, and burning the foreign clothes, and non-payment of tax to the government were a few other programs to be adopted. तेणु जो प्रोग्राम गुड़िक से कहिथिले प्रथमे से कहिले जे एई जो प्रोग्राम रो जो नॉन कोऑपरेशन मूवमेंट रो जो प्रोग्राम गुड़िक थिला, जो बॉयकॉट सबु सेगुडा को से माने मानिबे, परवर्ती समय रे से भारतीय लोक मानकू जेइथिले जे मद दुकान आगे अफिम दुकान आगे एवं विदेशी द्रव्य जो सब बिक्री होथबो सेही केंद्र मानक आगे केंद्र सम्मुख रे धारणा देबा पे एतद्व्यतीत आंदोलनकारी माने विदेशी वस्त्र मध्य अग्नि संजोग करने सहित सरकार को कर न देवा प्रतिज्ञा करथिले. एहीपरि भाबरे शोभा यात्राटी आरंभ होइथिला एवं सेमाने कोठिकी जाइथिले शोभा यात्रा आरंभ कले. And after this program, the civil disobedience movement was launched by Gandhiji with his famous Dandi March. Dandi March आरंभ करथिले from Sabarmati Ashram with 79 सत्याग्रही, 79 सत्याग्रही मानकू धरी महात्मा गांधी तांकर दांडी मार्च आरंभ करथिले साबरमती आश्रम. ये दांडी कोठी अवस्थित? Dandi is a wayside village at a distance of 390 km from Sabarmati on the west coast of Gujarat. ये गुजरात थारे अवस्थित एवं गांधीजी reached his destination on April 6 and broke the SALT law. SALT लुण आईन को ब्रेक करथिले एवं ब्रेक करी से लोक मानकु मध्य आह्वान देइथिले जे कोनोसी रूल न मानिया पई ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट रो एवं दिस सॉल्ट लॉ was the break of salt law was a symbol of defiance of the laws made by the government. This was also a signal for a nationwide mass movement. For the first time in the history of the country, women were mobilized for the national struggle and they marched with they marched soldier to soldier with men up. अर्थात यही प्रथम थर पे सिविल डिसोबीडियंस मूवमेंट रे पुरुष मान कांधरे कांध मिले वोमेन माने माने महिला माने मध्य एई आंदोलन रे योगदान देइथिले तापरे गांधी जी कॉल्ड अपॉन द पीपल टू सेलिब्रेट द वीक गोटे सप्ताह पालन करथिले फ्रॉम 6th April to 13th April as the national week and defied the salt laws and picket liquor shops opium फॉरेन क्लॉथ डीलर शॉप जोटा से माने ए जो दुकान मानक आगे विद्रोह करथिले एवं द मूवमेंट दिस सिविल डिसोबीडियंस मूवमेंट स्प्रेड फ्रॉम टाउन टू टाउन एंड विलेज टू विलेज thousands of men and women braved lathi blows and counted arrest by the British government. ए जो मूवमेंट रे जो आंदोलन रे बहु शह शह थरी जो महिला और पुरुष माने योगदान करथिले तांको ब्रिटिश पुलिस माने बहुत टॉर्चर माने बाड़े थिले एवं at many places the administration was put out of gear माने हाथ कंट्रोल पळेला peasants in the United Provinces refused to pay revenue. Midanpur in Bengal went out of the control of the government. In the north-west frontier province, the Pathan also adopted the policy of non-cooperation under the leadership of Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, popularly known as Saraswati Gandhi. पिला माने एटा जानिया दरकार फ्रंटियर गांधी बा सरहदी गांधी काहा को जाय ना खान अब्दुल गफर खान को जानि छ पिला नै
यस सर
यस तेनो ए जो लीडरशिप कहा अंडर द लीडरशिप ऑफ Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, as I have already discussed with you, that under the leadership of Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, the Muslims set up the Khudai Khidmatkar disobedience movement, and after this, in many places like northwestern frontier province, the Pathans or the Muslims also adopted the policy of non-cooperation under the leadership of this Saraswati Gandhi or Frontier Gandhi, whose name was Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan. At Peshawar, the 18th Royal Garhwal Rifles refused to open fire on a crowd. Peshawar remained in the hands of the people for more than a week. It was recaptured by the government with the help of British Army and Air Force. In the meantime, in 1930, May 5, Gandhiji was arrested along with Jawaharlal Nehru and other prominent leaders. जो May 5, 1930 ख्रीष्टाब्द ब्रिटिशर्स माने महात्मा गांधी को अरेस्ट कले ताको सहित जवाहरलाल नेहरू एवं अदर प्रोमिनेंट लीडर्स वर अरेस्टेड. This arrest led to hartals and mass demonstrations all over the country. Solapur in Maharashtra became almost independent. The British government resorted to repression and terror. The Congress was declared an illegal organization. The British declared the All India Congress an illegal organization. More than 60,000 persons, 60,000 loko, were put behind the bars for various terms of imprisonment. Firing took place at 29 places. The Britishers killed 103 persons and injured 426 people. Jails were packed to capacity. माने जेतिक ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट जेल तैयारी करथले सब पैक हे गेले. After that, repressive measures which was taken by the Britishers as I have already mentioned that more than 60,000 persons were put behind bars for various terms of imprisonment. Firing took place at 29 places, and the Britishers killed 103 persons and injured 426, and jails were packed to capacity. The repressive measures which were taken by the British government. The British government tried to repress the civil disobedience movement. The British government arrested Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru and other important leaders, I have already mentioned you, and thousands of people from different parts of all Odisha were also imprisoned. माने भारत रे तो जति ओडिशा मध्य मध्य जतक सब माने जॉइन करथिले सेमानकु मध्य अरेस्ट करा हेतिला तापर परवर्ती समय रे विभिन्न प्रकार केतक मुख्य घटना घटिथिला एई पर जो repressive measures पर while on the one hand the government was following a policy of repression, but on the other hand he tried to compromise with the Indians. Sir Tej Bahadur Sapru, Dr. Joykar played the role of mediator between the Congress leaders and British authorities. पिलामाने जोठी ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट रिप्रेस करूची ए सिविल डिसोबीडियंस मूवमेंट केमिति ना लोक मानकु गुली करी लोक मानकु जेल ले पुरे किंतु गोटे पटे एपटे काम कला आउ गोटे पटे से इंडियंस मान सहित कोन कहूची प्याच पकेबो प्याच माने तांको सहित समझी करिवो एई सब जो मीडिएटर एई आंको भीतर जो नेगोशिएशन करिया पई सर तेज बहादुर सप्रू and Dr. Joykar played the role of mediator between the Congress leaders and British authorities. Gandhiji and other important leaders of the Congress like many leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and many others were released from jail. Negotiation for settlement began in January 1931. 1931 ख्रीष्टाब्द जनवरी 19 रे एक नेगोशिएशन ए जो कहा माध्यम रे ए तेज बहादुर सप्रू एवं डॉक्टर जयकर कहा का मध्य नेगोशिएशन करे चाहिए बिटवीन द कांग्रेस लीडर्स एंड द ब्रिटिश अथॉरिटीज. सो एट लास्ट the important leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and including Mahatma Gandhi, they were released from jail and the negotiations for settlement began in 19 January 1931. And apart from this, due to this negotiation, the Gandhi Irwin Pact was signed. The Gandhi Irwin Pact was signed on behalf of the Congress. Mahatma Gandhi agreed to discontinue the civil disobedience movement, to stop the boycott British commodities and take part in the second roundtable conference on behalf of the British government. The Viceroy agreed to withdraw ordinances promulgated in connection with it, against whom there are no charges of violence, to return property which was seized, to permit people living with certain distance of the seashore to collect or manufacture salt free of duty, and to permit peaceful picketing of liquor and opium shops. तेणु एई जो कथाटी हैला जेते बेले महात्मा गांधी, जवाहरलाल नेहरू आउ अदर इंपोर्टेंट लीडर्स मानकू जेल भर्ती करा गला, सेते बेले गोटे पटे ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट तार रिप्रेसिव मेजर्स द्वारा एगुड़िक करथिला, कि गोटे पटे से चाहूला कांग्रेस लीडर मान सहित नेगोशिएशन करिया पे एवं एई नेगोशिएशन रे प्रथमे जो जो से माने सूत्रधार थिले सिए हेले सर तेजपुत्र तेज बहादुर सप्रू एंड जयकार, डॉक्टर जयकार. एंड से समय ब्रिटिश अथॉरिटी माने रिलीज करदेला महात्मा गांधी, जवाहरलाल नेहरू, सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल और अदर इंपोर्टेंट लीडर्स मान को जेल रिलीज करदेला एवं गोटे पैक्ट साइन हैला. ए जो नेगोशिएशन जो हैला between Congress leaders and the British authorities ସେଇ negotiation ର pact ଟା ହଉଛି ଗାନ୍ଧୀ Eden Pact ସେଇଟା ସାଇନ୍ ହେଲା in the year 1939 on behalf of the Congress ର behalf ରେ ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ କହିଲେ ମୁଁ discontinue କରିବି civil disobedience movement and stop କରିବି boycott of British commodities and ସେ second round table conference ରେ pass କରିବା ପାଇଁ on behalf of British government ଯିବେ England ଏବଂ the viceroy agreed to withdraw ordinances ମାନେ ଯୋଉ ସବୁ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ ମାନେ ଯାଇଥିଲେ ଯୋଉ ତାଙ୍କର ପ୍ରପର୍ଟି ସିଜ୍ କରିଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ଯୋଉ ଲୁଣ ଆଇନ ଯୋଉ କରିଥିଲେ ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ କର ଦେବା ପାଇଁ ସେଗୁଡାକୁ ବି ମନା କଲେ ଏବଂ ଯୋଉ ସେକେଣ୍ଡ ରାଉଣ୍ଡ ଟେବୁଲ ଯିବା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ପ୍ରଥମ ରାଉଣ୍ଡ ଟେବୁଲ କନଫରେନ୍ସରେ ଫାର୍ଷ୍ଟ ରାଉଣ୍ଡ ଟେବୁଲ କନଫରେନ୍ସ ଯୋଉ ଫାର୍ଷ୍ଟ ରାଉଣ୍ଡ ଟେବୁଲ କନଫରେନ୍ସ ଯୋଉଟା ହେଇଥିଲା ଇଂଲଣ୍ଡରେ ସେଠି 69 members ମାନେ ଥିଲେ meanwhile the first round table conference was held in England before second round table conference 69 members were attended in the first round table conference but Mahatma Gandhi's name was not found in this list जो प्रथम जो second round table conference को हमर जिबा थिला कहार महात्मा गांधीଙ୍କର ता पूर्वरु प्रथम गोल टेबल बैठक बा प्रथम राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस हेइथिला किंतु एई प्रथम राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस रे से माने 69 मेंबर्स माने को नेइथिले किंतु एई जो 69 मेंबर्स माने थिले एठी 69 मेंबर्स मानक मध्य रे महात्मा गांधी को ना नथिला so whatever it may be the Congress was represented by Mahatma Gandhi as his sole representative in the second round table conference from 7th September to December 1931 ତେଣୁ second round table conference କେବେ ହେଲା ସେପ୍ଟେମ୍ବର 7 ରୁ ଡିସେମ୍ବର 1931 ଯାଏ ଡିସେମ୍ବର 1 1931 ଯାଏ ଚାଲିଲା ସେକେଣ୍ଡ ଦ୍ୱିତୀୟ ଗୋଲ ଟେବୁଲ ବୈଠକରେ କଣ ଜଏନ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ସେମାନେ ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ଯାଇଥିଲେ kaha on behalf of the Indian National Congress ତେଣୁ the conference was held under the British British Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald ତେଣୁ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ସେକେଣ୍ଡ ରାଉଣ୍ଡ ଟେବୁଲ କନଫରେନ୍ସ ହେଲା यार ପ୍ରେସିଡେଣ୍ଟ ମାନେ ସଭାପତିତ୍ୱ କରିଥିଲେ Ramsay MacDonald and as the representatives of other interests and groups like Muslim, Sikh, Christian, princess were more concerned with safeguarding their interests than with country's independence. Mahatma Gandhi felt disgusted in this conference, but this conference could not arrive at any agreement regarding communal representation and ended failure. Gandhiji returned to India with empty hands and landed in Bombay on 28 December 1931 AD. But during that time, the British government now pursued its policy divide and rule with greater vigor. The Prime Minister of England, Ramsay MacDonald, gave his notorious communal award in 1932 AD. एठी से माने तांकू कहिथिले कोन माने communal award जो हमर जो between the relations between Muslims and Hindus, Sikhs and Christians try to convert to one सेई जो concept ता महात्मा गांधी नै कहिथिले किंतु ब्रिटिशर्स माने मानि नथिले एठी ଆମର ଏଇ ଯୋଉ କନଫରେନ୍ସ ରେ ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ କୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ୱିନଷ୍ଟନ ଚର୍ଚିଲ ଇଂଲଣ୍ଡର ବିଶିଷ୍ଟ ରାଜନୈତିକ ଦ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ ପଲିଟିସିଆନ ୱିନଷ୍ଟନ ଚର୍ଚିଲ ଅଶ୍ଳୀଳ ଭାଷା ବ୍ୟବହାର କରି କହିଥିଲେ ରାଜଦ୍ରୋହୀ ଏବଂ ହାଫ ନେକେଡ ଫକିର କାହାକୁ କହିଥିଲେ ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀକୁ କିଏ କହିଥିଲେ ପିଲାମାନେ
Winston Churchill.
Winston Churchill, the British politician, great British politician. And the British government now pursued its policy of divide and rule with great vigor. And at that time, the then Prime Minister of England, Ramsay MacDonald, gave his notorious communal award in 1932 AD and extended the system of separate electorate to the depressed classes as well. तलतलिया लोक मान सेपरेट इलेक्शन प्रोसीजर कराला. गांधीजी while in jail observed fast unto death against the provision of separate electorate for the scheduled caste or depressed classes. So as a result, এই जो প্যাক্টটি আরম্ভ হয়েছিল, এই जो separate electorate হয়েছিল, as a result Pune Pact was signed by which the system of separate electorate for horizon was replaced by reservation of seats for them. The British government accepted the pact and thus the life of father of the nation was saved. ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେ କହିଲେ, ଯେତେବେଳେ the Prime Minister of England Ramsay MacDonald ସେ communal award ଯେତେବେଳେ declare କଲା, ସେଠି separate electorate to the ମାନେ आदिवासी हरिजन ପାଇଁ ସେପାରେଟ କଲା ଇଲେକ୍ସନ. ସେଠି କଣ ହେଲା, ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ କହିଲେ ନା ମୁଁ ତାଙ୍କର ମାନେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ବିରୋଧ କରିଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଜେଲରେ ପୁରେଇ ଦେଇଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ସେଇଠି ସେ କହିଲେ ମୁଁ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ମାନେ କଣ ଉପାସ କରିବି ମଲା ଯାଏ. ସେଇଠୁ ପୁନା ପ୍ୟାକ୍ଟ ସାଇନ୍ ହେଇଥିଲା ଏବଂ ଗାନ୍ଧୀଜୀ was saved and the nation was also saved. Gandhiji was released from jail in May 1933. In the meantime, the third roundtable conference was held, and this third roundtable conference was held in December 1932. तेणु प्रथम जो roundtable हला सेठी 1931, second roundtable conference 31, and 1932 third roundtable conference was held in December 1932. But the Congress boycotted it. तो पिलाने प्रथम राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस रे महात्मा गांधी को ना नथिला. सेकंड राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस रे महात्मा गांधी जाइथिले किंतु ह्यूमिलेट हे के आथिले. थर्ड राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस को द इंडियन नेशनल कांग्रेस बॉयकॉट कला. Thus the conference remained only a conference of the loyalists of the British rule. No Indians participated in this conference. In June 1933, Gandhiji advised the suspension of mass civil disobedience, but suggested continuation of individual satyagraha or individual civil disobedience. So these are the important aspects of civil disobedience movement. But after that, the character of civil disobedience movement was individualistic. Congressmen were allowed to register their protest against the British government individually. ତେଣୁ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ଗାନ୍ଧୀଜୀ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦେଶ ଦେଇଦେଲେ ଯେ ମାସ୍ ସିଭିଲ ଡିସୋବିଡିଏନ୍ସ ହବ ନାହିଁ, ସମସ୍ତେ ନିଜ ନିଜ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ ନିଜ ନିଜ ଆକାରରେ ସବୁ ସିଭିଲ ଡିସୋବିଡିଏନ୍ସ କରାଯାଉ. ତେଣୁ ଏଇ ପରିପ୍ରେକ୍ଷୀରେ ଆଚାର୍ଯ୍ୟ ବିନୋବା ଭାବେ one of Gandhiji staunch follower was entrusted with responsibilities of starting this individual civil disobedience movement. Binoba Bhave delivered anti-war speech on 7th October 1940 at Paunar, a village near Wardha. He was arrested on 21st of October. Then Jawaharlal Nehru also arrested due to anti-war speech. Different important leaders, many prominent Congress leaders like Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, C. Rajgopalachari, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, as well as other Congress leaders were arrested and imprisoned for their anti-war speeches. ତେଣୁ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର କଂଗ୍ରେସ ଲିଡର ମାନେ ସବୁ ଆରେଷ୍ଟ ହେଇଗଲେ ଏବଂ ଆରେଷ୍ଟ ହେଇକି ଜେଲରେ ରହିଲେ. In final phase, the individual civil disobedience movement protested by Rabindranath Tagore, and the civil disobedience movement lasted till the end of 1941. मनला 11 वर्ष धरी and the congressmen became tired of going to jail jail ku jautile asutile till the end of 1941 there was no sign favorable attitude on the part of the British government towards India jete kale bi Britishers mananko bharatiya mananko prati konosi sadbhava nathila Winston Churchill the then prime minister the British prime minister the British great politician did not want to loosen Britain's grip over India. So, later on December 7, 1941, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, thus joined the war on behalf of Germany. Japan joined kala that endangered the security of India. And the Indian government therefore started releasing the Satyagrahis unconditionally. Finally, in last week of December 1941, the Congress Working Committee decided to suspend the civil disobedience movement. Thus, whatever the discussion from the above point of view, we cannot underestimate the achievements of civil disobedience movement, which certainly paved the path for another great movement. So we can say that the civil disobedience movement organized by Mahatma Gandhi was a significant step in the direction of the achievement of independence. It gave a huge boost to the national freedom struggle. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Any questions from your side? No questions? So next class we'll discuss about Quit India movement. Then next Subhash Chandra Bose INA. Next class Quit India movement and revolutionary movements by different leaders and in different areas. Then Subhash Chandra Bose INA and making of Constitution of India. Constitution. So 3 parts are there to be discussed. So if you have any doubts, please ask me.